Hey everyone, welcome to the stream. Just getting things going here. How's it going, Bill? Went for a Guinness this time? Yeah, a Guinness is good. I prefer a Guinness more in the kind of winter months where, like, I don't know, something like Guinness feels like a drink that you want a cold time, not in the summertime, because it's creamy and light. Yeah, but you know me, I have to stick with the red wine. I've started something. And there's this weird effect on the camera. I think it's because I don't know how to use Streamlabs correctly, but we'll see how it goes. So just getting things ready here. I'm kicking off soon. So, the thing, um, if you're here first time here, this is the Hello Drunk World series by the dyslexic developer. This is where every fortnight I get drunk and try and code something from nothing. On this stream, we're doing. We're doing it's a little bit out of sync. Yeah, hopefully they'll catch up. I think it's Stream Deck and Restream have a little bit of a lag. But yeah, so we're doing a command line game. So this is actually like like a friend of mine, Bill, Twitter friend. We'll eventually meet in real life sometime whenever lockdown's over. But he was talking recently about building out a CLI tool to help generate his own like code or for his projects and stuff like that. Kind of liking that weird camera effect. It was kind of cool. It reminded me of tools like Yeoman and Create React App, where you can run a command and then it'll build out a file structure with all your data information in it. And it seems seems like a really cool idea. It's a cool way, like especially if you're in a team and you're building out multiple applications all the time, having a CLI that can generate like a skeleton project for you, and it potentially then generate new parts of your application can be really useful because you set standards. At that point, people aren't having to go through the monotonous process of creating a random file, having to type out of the code every time. Like I always think back to I used Yeoman, and there were days when I was doing Angular because they had loads of Angular. What do they call them, Yeoman? I think they were like starters or projects, so you could just do like Angular, e-commerce, and it would build out the structure of that like kind of project for you, and it would easily build all your code. It's like the screen effect. Yeah, I know, but it looks shit here, but it'll look better in the actual like screen view. So don't worry about the camera. It's funky. Yeah, so it'll build out these like structured applications for you. So you're not having to write out, import Angular from Angular. You're not having to write it, and then you can adapt and you can grow those. So then, if you have an existing project already, you can then say something like, my CLI add new view, and it'll add all the scaffolding files that you would need for a view. So you might need a HTML, a template file, a JavaScript file, a style file, maybe even auto connect that view to a routing mechanism that you're using. So you can on the fly create new parts of your application, or you can say create a service or whatever. And I think it's something that's potentially missing from Create React App, where it gives you the scaffold, and at that point it's kind of just you're on your own. The commands are start, build, and that's really it. Where you could you could add in the Create React App the ability to say Create React App new component, and that would scaffold out a component for you using the latest standard of whatever the React team have decided. Yeah, I think that's kind of good. So, right, enough arsing about. Time to crack open our wine and do our ASMR. I never get it right. So as I'm going through these things, you know, if I'm doing something like why you do it this way, or if I'm flying through code, ask questions, you know. Also, and if I hit a roadblock and I can't figure out what I'm doing, help. Definitely help me. So let's get into the code of things. And you get the unprofessional CMI streaming software. When I have a dual monitor set up, you should hopefully never see that. So I did a bit of research ahead of time. Actually, before we even get to that point, let's stick with the bare basics. So obviously, I did a bit of research ahead of time. You kind of seen that there now, but so in essence, creating like a CLI tool using Node, which I think is always kind of strange because a CLI tool, like you think of a CLI tool as just like a bash script. So if I create a bash script here, new file, test.sh. So bash script is always like a .sh file on Linux systems. I think it's .bat on Windows. And you have limited commands. I need to go into presentation mode for this. So we can do easy hit. So we can say echo. I think it's double quotes. And I should be able to then run this. So I do /. Oh, I can type already. So why isn't this working for me? Yeah, so I want to say /test.sh. Oh, permission sudo. Maybe I have to sudo that command. And I can't type my bash password either. This is where I should have done a little bit more research. Yeah, so normally you would do things like, you know, you create a simple bash script. You have to do bintos. This will actually feed into the Node example. So let's see if this runs. Okay, that's going to shit. We're going to forget about that. But normally, if you're doing some sort of command line, yeah, I started with bash and became a nightmare. Yeah. So normally, if you're doing something with command line, you're going to write, you know, a bash script, so .sh file, and like you can echo to print things out. You can run normal commands, so you could, you know, have ls in here and then cd .. // to move around directories and do whatever you need to do. And it's more or less doing what you can in the terminal. You can do it in that file, and it's just going through that terminal script and it's running each of those lines as like a command line. And you can do things where you can create loops, you can create functions, you can do more advanced stuff, but it gets really difficult and really hard to follow. We're all JavaScript developers. Well, I say we're a JavaScript developer. I'm a JavaScript developer, so I want to do this via JavaScript. I want to like really do a command line tool in JavaScript. Node.js is already set up for this really well. So if you think about, you know, things that you run that are command line tools that are written in JavaScript, npm itself, Webpack, Babel, Node, all these different tools, they're all just command line scripts, but they're all written in JavaScript. So let's go back to, so we have an index.js file. And you can kind of see what I did in the bash script. I had it in this hashbang bin/bash. In this case, we have to provide this as well, so it tells Node to run this like a bash script. It's like just a Node bash script. So by that information saying like this is our Node environment, so it allows it to be able to run as a Node script. And we can do simple things in here. So I can log stuff out. So if I do node I'm actually going to bump up my terminal. Print site test. Okay, that's very basic and it's not really powerful, but we're getting kind of somewhere. You know, the ability to kind of console log stuff out. But if you've seen the tweet, let's flick over it. See the tweet, we had something like this that we were working with. We want to be able to get to that point. We're going to try and build a game that's fully in the terminal. I kind of think about something I could do with a terminal that a little bit different, and building like, I never played them, but I always see people talking about these idea of like, you know, text-based adventure game where you're not, there's no graphics, there's no movement. It's all like, you know, answering questions, typing in things. So we're going to try and build this out. So as I said before, I kind of had done some research ahead of time. And I have another file called backup. So we're going to need a few different things. So first we're going to pull in is this house file. So if we go and look at house, let's see. And if you see me looking down, I'm checking like the stream chat. Oh, had the BBC with the text games. Now, if that's the BBC as the old BBC computer, that's pretty awesome. And I remember that kind of evolved into teletext, had the ability where you could play games using it. So you could use your remote and you would, you know, hit the different colored buttons and they would correspond to a command that was sending the teletext. I always wondered how that worked under the hood. Like, you know, I imagine in my head, you know, each button in the remote maps to just a key, almost like in a keyboard. So the red must be just a key and the blue must be a key. And it's like, if you send that key, is it telling it to go to a different channel? And each channel is a different screen in the application. So we have this house ASCII art that I ripped off the web somewhere. Because we're doing a Node script, it's all going to be kind of like Node import export notations. So if you're just a modern web-based JavaScript, you would imagine this would be export house, or potentially, but as far as I remember, that doesn't work in Node. It's been a while since I've done actual Node applications, but this is the old golden way of doing things. Module.exports. So we're saying this module is in this file. Is going to export a house like variable which contains a templated string of our ASCII art. So now we have our house, and if I do house.log, go over our terminal, it renders out our house in a nice little ASCII art terminal. Okay, yeah, so Bill's saying it was for redirects page 3. Ah, yeah. And this funny enough, the method used by teletext is going to be very similar to the method I think we're going to be using in this game, because it's all based off like, if you choose this path, you go to this page that has these options, and you go. A lot of it's going to be repeating. We're going to try and see if we can, you know, keep code clean, refactor as we go. So we've got our house printing out. We're flicking their backup. We need our stuff. So yeah, the next bit we have here is, if I run our game again, you know, it's printed out, and I run our game again and again and again, it looks really bit clean, really like unclean. So we want to be able to do stuff that can keep the terminal clean, so we're playing it as a fresh plane. Normally, if I was in the terminal, I would always run clear before I do anything, and that just clears out the terminal, preserves the history so I can still scroll up. But we can do the same here. So the first thing we want to do in our entire application is run console.clear, and that's going to clear the console for us. So if I do node, so it looks like nothing's changed, but it's wiped the console clear and then put it back in for us. So then we need to kind of have like our open-in message. So if I go back to what we had in the tweet, you find yourself in the basement of a house, no windows, and it's dark. So again, basement of a house, no windows, and it's dark. The game is going to be terrible. Let's just admit that from the outset here. The game is not the challenge here. The challenge here is how do we have an interactive terminal application. Oh, I did that wrong. So for like this login statement I'm using, this is just like the shorthand for WebStorm. If you're not using WebStorm, use it. Well, you have to pay for it. So if you're not using WebStorm, use VS Code. So right, what does our game look like? Okay, so we got our message. We can probably pad that out. A lot of this is going to be off screen. I code with the terminal in this. I call it 180, well, 120 characters wide. And this, now that it's zoomed in, it's going to be bigger. So actually, we're going to flick that around and we'll make our terminal full size. Don't need it clear. Our application will clear for us. So, what's our next step? So we need to get to the point where we can ask our first question and allow our user to respond to that question. Now, you can write this all by hand, but npm exists for a reason, to give us things that can do it for us. So this is where the library inquire.js comes into play. So inquire.js allows you to do like advanced interactive command line terminals in Node. There's a shit ton of stuff, and we're going to figure out bits and pieces as we go through. So number one thing, install inquire. I've already installed it. Let's pull it in and play about with it. So we'll keep all of our requires together, and we flick back here. So inquire has a very simple interface actually, and a very interesting interface. Oh, your CLI is dependency free. Well, bully to you indeed. I hope you enjoy maintaining all of that dependency free code. So inquire has a prompt, which is a promise from the looks of it, because you can then dot line and catch on it, so we can potentially do some asynchronous work here if we wanted to. So you can see here the prompt takes an array of questions, and we're going to be digging more into the question logic. The questions is actually quite interesting, because you might think to yourself, like, why would you want to pass through an array of questions? In some cases, you want to gather up a bunch of questions and then feed them into something else. So, for example, if I open up a new terminal, see, and then make a new directory. So prime example of seeing all these different questions and then having an answer at the bottom would be when you do npm init, it'll go through and ask a bunch of different questions, and then it gathers all that information and generates a file for you. You can do npm init -y, and I think it automatically says yes to everything. But that's kind of like what it would be look like if you were, wanted to gather a bunch of information and then do something with all that information. For this case, I want to build it as one of those kind of things. It's like, you wake up in the basement of a house, right? What do you do? And you have a bunch of options. And we'll fudge the options as we go. The drunker I get, the less inventive they're probably going to get. So inquire kind of gives that pattern where you ask a question, then do something with the answer. You can catch an error as well. I don't think we're going to be, this is a quick project, we're going to be catching errors. So this is where it gets interesting. So the questions can be of multiple different types, like input, number, confirm, list, raw list, expand. So let's think about what we want to do first. So I think first what we want to do is like get the person's name and do something with that name. So let's see, inquire. So copy pasta. Just grab this, and we'll start off with, let's ask them for their name. So this is an array. It takes in questions. I think questions are objects. So if we go to, so a question object is a hash containing I don't really call it a hash. It's an object. It's an object containing these values. So let's see if we have any examples of what it looks like. No, okay, we can build it out. So we're going to give it type. I imagine type of input allows the user to do something. So we're going to pass it one question. Type I can never type input. So type is input. Name. So name is used when storing the answer in the answer's hash. So we'll just say name is, well, funny enough, in this example, name is going to be name because we're asking for the player's name. The message, so the question we're going to print. We're going to say, what is your name? I think it puts the question mark on it because it's inquiring. We're going to see without the question mark what happens. Default we don't care about. Choices isn't applicable. Value filtered, all this kind of stuff. So we're not too fussed on that. So then answers, we're just going to say answers dot. We're going to just log out our answers. Again, I'm not too fussed on error handling until this goes wrong. Then I'll be fussed on error handling. We'll have to dig into that. So what happens when we run this? Okay, so answers is what they call it a hash, which technically is a hash, where it's an object with key value pairs. So then we can say answers dot name. Let's make this a little bit more interesting. We're going to do a little templated string, grab in their name, so we can say welcome. Are you ready for adventure? This is where my typing ability and spelling ability is really going to be tested on this stream, because I'm going to be doing a lot of actual typing of text. So what is your name? Chris, did I got it right? Welcome, Chris. Are you ready for adventure? So at this point then, that would be a really good opportunity for a question. So we could then say, do a new inquired or prompt inside of here, because we're going to be in nested. So in this case then our message is going to be this, and the type is not going to be an because we want a yes and no type. So let's flick over to inquire. So what is confirm? Confirm is a Boolean. So let's put in confirm, and it's going to be called ready. Now this is where it's going to get interesting because our answers is already defined. I'm hoping the closure nature of this code will help us, but we're going to break this into more manageable stuff. So we'll say this will be confirm answers, which is going to make a really bad variable declaration down here. So what we want to say, like, we want to ask them if they confirm, and then we want to do something with this. So we're going to do an if statement here and log out two different variables. So we say if confirm answers dot confirm, because we know it hashes keys them or whatever. Yeah, I mean, hashes is the correct term. Hashes them based on what they were named. So if that's true, then welcome to the game. Else, because it's a Boolean value, we should be able to else and say, and give them a very polite message. So let's see what happens with this. Don't like this nested inquirer kind of pattern, but we can fix this. We can play with it. So run our game again. So what is your name? Chris. Are you ready? No. Okay, let's run this again. Chris. Fuck off. As I always say, fuck off. Is this because of the yes/no test? So why? Okay. This is where debugging and login is going to come in to save the day. So run this again. Test. Are you ready? I hit Y. I'll do uppercase Y as it's kind of giving me. Ready equals true. Oh no, I named it ready, not confirm. So that would make more sense. So let's run our game again. Welcome to the game. Run our game again. Okay, so now we can handle like a start process of a game. So this is a little bit unclean and it's going to turn into a very nested tree structure. So let's kind of break this stuff out. So go const. And we want to make these functions. Yes, so we're going to say const is player ready. And that'll allow us to structure out and build our code. And then we'll grab this code. Plop it in here. And then what we can do to make this even cleaner is we'll say, so is player ready takes answers as its main parameter. Then when we come to the dot then, instead of this function, we can just say is player ready. So let's run our game again, make sure it's okay. Chris. Yes. Does it work with a small y, I wonder? Yeah, okay, yeah, small y. I don't know why terminals do that. Big Y, small O. It's what you're more encouraged to do, which works in this way. So in a lot of terminal applications, you'll have, you know, confirmation. No, yes. Do you want to do this? Yes or no. And the Y or the N will be capitalized based on which choice you're recommended to do. Which is interesting that it went for Y automatically. So this is very basic at the moment, very basic. We're going to add some comments to our code as well so we can keep track of what's going on. Main start. This file is going to start getting huge, so let's start pulling a lot of this out. So we're going to create a new file that's going to hold our questions. And we're going to export this like we did with our house. Exports equals is. We're actually going to make this an object because we're going to be exporting multiple functions hopefully at this point. So we'll say is player ready. I wonder, will it automatically build or add in the imports for me in WebStorm? Yeah, okay, so is player ready comes from our questions. So let's run our game to test everything out. And we got an error. Unhandled promise rejection, blah, 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 blah. Oh, inquire is not defined. So we have inquire here. We need inquire inside of our questions. So save that. Okay, we're getting somewhere. So we've got our kind of question that we start with. Is player ready? Let's do some little bit more advanced stuff with this as well. I want to try different question types. I want to go multiple choice, all that kind of stuff. So I think after welcome to the game, we want to call another question. So this is going to be first choice. So first choice, all of these are going to be functions because they'll need to take in the, well, yeah, they don't always have to take in the answers, but we need to be able to call them. So we'll copy our inquire pattern. I wonder, can we make this a little bit, could we make, that's what we're going to do. We want to make this more maintainable and growable, so we're going to create a wrapper for inquire. So create a JavaScript file called question. So we have questions and question. Import or inquire. And this is going to say now we need to then pass it answers. Answers is going to be a standard for us. So we're going to say answers and then options. So then we can say pull all this data out. So we're building a wrapper. So the reason I'm doing this, we're building a wrapper around inquire to get rid of the repeated logic that we're having to do. And the fact that we're calling prompt all the time, the fact that we're calling main all the time, we can extract a lot of that out and make like a more cleaner wrapper. It means as well, if we want to change something in the inquire API, we're not having to repeat that process everywhere else. So I'm going to create this type or this options. So we take an answers, which is all the answers. We also take an options of what the question could be about. So we're going to say our options is going to hold the type and name and the message for now, because I think that's all we're dealing with. So we're extracting those out of options, which means now we can get rid of this, we can get rid of this, and we can get rid of this. Although how are we going to interact? So the message might have to be dynamic, because if we want to take things from the last message. So what we do is message becomes a function that takes answers. This will all become clear when I figure out what I'm doing. And then we'll call this Q answers, because this is the question answers. And actually no, we'll not even call the .len. It'll return the promise for us and we'll deal with it there. So we have a question function that can dynamically generate an inquire prompt with different types and messages. Module.export this out. And if there's anything about that you're like, why are you making that decision? What are you thinking of? This is where I've kind of got a bit rogue, where I didn't prep the entirety of all this. This is kind of off the cuff, so it may or may not work out in the end. So we now have that. So let's replace our isPlayerReady question with our new question that we've wrapped inquire with. So we can say question, and we're going to have to import it, aren't we? So we'll import our question. So now we can say question, and it takes in answers, but also takes in an object of options. So in this case, we're going to say, nope. So our type is confirm. Fuck, I'm getting to the point where I can, do we want, they have that? No, I'm not standardizing. I was going to start creating like standardized objects for all the different types. I wish inquire actually exported out its own types. Does it? Where like, so I don't have to type in the actual word confirm and all this kind of stuff all the time, but it probably doesn't, and we can deal with typing stuff. So yeah, so I will copy paste this up into here. So the main change now is this actually becomes ANS, shorthand for answers. This becomes a function where we can pass things in. Now I guess the fact that we have answers at this scope. So do we need this? Does it need to be a function? I think it could just be a normal templated string. Maybe I'm overcomplicating things. So let's go back to our question, and it just becomes that it maps the message. So technically then we can call our .then on our question wrapper, and we can get rid of the inquire call. .then on this returns a promise. Yeah. I think WebStorm is complaining, but it doesn't understand. Question is not a function. Modules.exports. Yeah, okay, I was missing an S. Okay, so our game's still working, we've kind of refactored this down. So now we can use this shorthand notation of question for what we need to do. So let's grab this and put it into our first choice. So first choice, so like I was kind of like, that's the funny thing, I've never played these type of games, but I've always kind of like seen them on, actually the last time I seen it was on the Goldbergs of all TV shows, and it's like, you know, it's usually like a kind of D&D style Dungeon Dragons Master kind of thing where you're, you know, it's like you're in a dark room. Do you want to go forward, left, right? And you're kind of given options to do different things. So whenever you do an option, you go somewhere and do something else. And I'm trying to think, right, I want to build something like that, but using this Inquirer framework with Node and all kind of stuff. So that's why we kind of have like, you know, are you ready? As in, do you want to play, or do you want to just go home, or politely go home? Or if we start playing, then you need to then like choose an option. Why are we passing answers to question? Is answers being used? It's not even being used. Okay, this is even worse. Let's refactor that a bit more. I don't know why we're passing answers to that. I think answers needs to go to the next function. So this is going to be, so this will get answers. So this would have got the answer if they were playing or not. But in this case, we don't care because they're playing. So let's see. This question is going to be something like, you know, Big Bang. Yeah, like Big Bang. Oh yes, Big Bang Sheldon. There was an episode where he was playing it. Yes, okay. So the Big Bang was the first time I'd seen one of these games, and then again, then the Goldbergs did a play on it. I must look up that. I'm assuming someone must have built this in the browser. I should have built it in the browser, the novelty. But I wanted to do a CLI tool and build something that was like, you know, synchronously doing node code. So make this an imp string for now. This is going to be answers. Yeah, so we're going to say something like, what do you do next? No, what do you want to do? And we want to give them multiple choice. So if we go back to inquire and look at our types of our questions. So we have input, number, confirm, list, raw list, expand, checkbox, password, editor. Ooh, editor could be interesting to play with. We also have choices. Choices array or function returning choices. It's defined as a function. That's the first parameter will be the current inquiry session answer. The array of values may use number strings or objects containing a name displaying a list. This is maybe what we need to do our multiple choice. They have prompt types, so list. Clicking the image should not have loaded that image up for me. So list, take type, name, message, choices, properties. Note the value must be choice index in the array of the value of choice. What the fuck does that even mean? The documentation for the site isn't the greatest in the world. I'll say that for definite. So I think maybe we go for list. What size do you need? And select them. So I'm going to pass in the list. And we're going to say the name of this is going to be choice, because that's what they, well, this is they chose. I can't write, I don't want to figure out how to write that. But yeah, okay, if we do this, then we need to provide our actual choices. So choices is going to be an array, assuming just strings. So let's see. So you walk up in a basement, it's dark, so look for a light. What else? Check the door. Look for a window. Even though until there isn't any windows, but you can look for it. Now where then? And lastly, sip a glass of wine. You've finally given up. You don't care anymore. So we don't know what this is going to render out. So we can't do any logic on it yet. So we're going to log this out. And we need to then implement our first choice. So we're going to do log. Whenever they've said ready, log out, welcome to the game, and then do first choice and call that as a function, which will then call our question. You must provide a choices pattern or parameter. Did I not? I did, but I spelled it wrong. I can type my name right. You must provide a choices parameter. Do you have to provide the choices to the type? Maybe. The documentation is extremely unuseful. So choices. Yeah, so if I pass in list, I provide an array. It can be a string or number. Oh, you know what? We know what we're missing. Because we built our our abstraction, it doesn't pass that through. So what we could do here is we could say, now this accepts choices. Why is that doing on a weird line? This accepts choices, and then we pass choices in here. But this gets us into this weird kind of architecture where we're building an API on top of another API, and we have to account for every possible option this API can and will have. We can take advantage of, hopefully we can take advantage of ES6 and use like the spread and rest operator. So we know that it's always going to have a type, a name, and a message. It has to have those. So then we can say ... rest, and this is going to say get me the rest of the options, and then we can then spread our rest value in. And what this is saying is, so rest is going to be an object of all those different parameters. We're taking that object and we're like opening the object up again into this. Does node support rest and spread? don't write clear. We do the clear for it already. So hit yes. Okay, so now we have an option, and good luck to you if you're building your own CLI tool and how complex interactions you're going to be able to handle with that. But we now have the ability to move up and down the keyboard. It loops over as well. It highlights the ones that we're selecting. We're able to then choose them. So initially I'm just going to sip a glass of wine. And now it's logged out what our selected option was. So let's see what else we can do. So that's, I'm not going to create every permutation of this, but we'll try and create a few to kind of expose some of the options that Inquirer has for us. So we did choices. So then we can say, because we have multiple potentials for our choices, what was that? What was it printed out? So choice is the value. So let's create a switch statement, and we can do answers dot, come on, auto generate for me, choices. It needs to be choice. So we'll create a switch statement on our choice value, and then that allows us to iterate over and do something different on each of the different choices. So we can, choices is spelled incorrectly, isn't it? I don't know. So let's say case. So each of these cases is going to be what the choice was. Didn't need those break because we're not returning out of this. So we'll copy this. And so let's see. Check the door. It's going to be in here. VS Code plugins, code spell checker. There must, WebStorm does a decent job of checking. It hasn't called that out, so it must be spelled correctly. As I said, and as the Twitch handle is, I'm the dyslexic developer. I'm proud of it, but thankfully I work with computers, so they type and do everything for me. I was trying to quickly copy and paste there using multi-cursors, but it doesn't work when you have, the only thing is, if I had dangle comma on, I could have multi-cursored, then moved down here. Oh, they're different on different lines, so fuck it. I can't do multi-cursor. I can, but it's too late now. So let's handle one of these scenarios. So say check the door. I kind of have an idea because I seen it. They have. See, we did list. I wonder, can you do multiple items? I wish those were links to different things. So there's this checkbox. So that allows you to choose things. I wonder, can you choose multiple things? So like the idea I'm thinking of is, so we say go check the door, and then the next question is like, on your way to the door, you find some items. Which items do you want to collect? And then you can choose the different items. And that could be an option for like building out a checkbox system. So take type, name, message, choices, what your choices are, properties. Default is expected to be an array of the checked choice values, which is going to be empty. Choices marked as checked true will be checked by default. Choices whose property disabled is blah 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 blah. So let's build out the scenario for check. So instead of check for the door, we're going to replace this, or check the door. We're going to replace this to be check for the door. Who else? Actually, I love on the username. It's the only blatant, obviously, thing I can think of for myself, and quite true. So check for the door. this is going to then call door check function, which doesn't exist yet. So we create this as a new function. Also, free balls, welcome to the chat. So we create a door check function. We need to then create a question for that. So let's create our question. So in this case, it's going to be checkbox based on what we're looking at. So I want this multiple choice option. Name's not going to be choice. Choice is too obvious all the time. So maybe it goes for something like, because it's going to be almost like picking up inventory. I don't want to name it inventory because that's going to be a nightmare to type out. We'll call it stuff. What's like a synonym for inventory is stuff. So yes, okay, that'll do. You find some items. What do you collect? What do you pick up? We're a simple game for simple people. So the items are going to be Swiss WISS Swiss Army knife. Swiss Army knife. Oh, Army is wrong. There you go. Spell checks keeping me straight, Bill. Swiss Army knife. What else? What would you find in a basement that would potentially helpful for you if you were locked in that basement? You need to escape. Let's say some. Some beer. What else do we need? You also need a hammer. Yeah, fancy rich man code editor. Yeah. Well, right. You say fancy rich man code editor. It is the case now. WebStorm used to be cheap and affordable to the point where I even paid for my own personal license for WebStorm. Now, this is years and years ago. And it's when WebStorm worked off this really good licensing model where you paid for a version that you were on, and that gave you 2 major versions after that. So say I was on version 5 and I bought the license, it means I could get all the updates up until version 7, and then at that point then I couldn't get any updates anymore. I don't know how that worked with, like, you know, if there was a vulnerability update or something was critical for the product to even work anymore. But then it meant, like, if you wanted any more improvements, then you would pay for a new license and upgrade. I don't know how, there was a sale on at the time. I got the license. This is over 5 years ago, so it's probably well changed by now. I got the license for £20, and that did me 2 major versions. And at the time, they were not releasing a lot and very regularly, so I managed to get like increasing improvements over 3 or 4 years worth of owning the product for £20, and like this. And the funny thing is, I barely use any of the features of WebStorm. The only reason I use WebStorm is I used to do full stack development, and I used to use IntelliJ at the time. So I've learned the key bindings and how things work in IntelliJ, and I managed to port them across to WebStorm. And since then, I can't leave WebStorm because it'll take me too long to relearn all the key bindings and figure out what I'm doing. So that's why I make sure my company pays for WebStorm. I don't have a personal license at the moment, but when I'm gonna have to start using a personal license anyway, or I might try VS Code and see if I can port it across. There is a port of the key bindings. It's not perfect. The one that I miss, I did it before. The one I miss is if I do command and up and down, it moves the file but doesn't move the cursor. It sounds like the most pointless thing, but if I'm working here and I know that I'm being called by this first choice function, I can easily navigate down, see, okay, I'm not passing any parameters. I don't have to worry about any parameters without having to fiddle about. Same with like command option moves the cursor in the current file and multiple files. It's like the placement of the cursor. There's different things that VS Code just doesn't do yet. Minor things, but those minor things are productivity killers when it comes to working on like a mature code base. Right, enough of that shit. Right, we need our last item. So we've got a Swiss Army knife, a beer, a hammer. What else have we got? Dust. There's always dust in the basement. So I think when we collect this, we need to do a dot then on our door check. And I want to see ANS. I've got fed up with typing answers every time. ANS ANS.log. I want to see how it prints out, and I can see that inquire isn't needed anymore because we've wrapped inquire. I want to see what it prints out. So we do node. Yes. So we can go through our options, but we know we've only wired up check the door. And it did nothing. Okay, so we're obviously missing something here. So is buyer ready? Calls first choice. First choice says, I bet you these don't match up. Let's print out the answers from here. I imagine name would be that case, but, or I say I assume, but when you assume, you make an ass out of me and you. So we want to check the door. So we get choice. Choice to check the doors. Oh, check for the door, check the door. My global copy and replace did not work. Hence, that is the problem. But it's interesting. I was just thinking there, but like I'm kind of running these problems, debugging by just doing console logs. And at the start, it's like, they have a catch. I'm like, we're not going to use the catch, but I guess the catch is for if something happens that just is totally unexpected. You don't want to crap out the CLI experience with a random message. You want to handle that and move on to the next. So maybe some options and choices aren't required, so you can just put in the default or do something to handle that kind of stuff. So let's run our game again. Okay. So now we have a multi-select. In essence, you find some items. What do you pick up? Press space to select. A to toggle all. I to invert selection. God, imagine having to code all of that from scratch and having to do that with zero dependencies. I don't think I'd ever be able to do that kind of stuff. So I think we're going to pick up our beer, our hammer, and our Swiss Army knife. And then we hit enter. Okay, so we've logged out all the things that we've selected. Yeah, don't worry, Bill. I'm only raking you. Yeah, like I wouldn't have a clue how to build out that concurrent with like the dots and all. Like, I imagine something. Oh, pick the user. Oh, there's something I seen about that actually. You're talking about picking a directory. There is something I've seen in here. So yeah, Inquire has the ability to put plugins in place. So you can then use this plugin, Fuzzy Path, and you can list out directories, and then they can select directories of where they want things to go. So definitely check out Inquire for your CLI tool, because you could get that ability to be able to choose directories based off what it's actually searching for in the current directory where it is at the minute. You can also add in ones as well to make it a little bit more prettier. So this handle, so they've got their choices. So we're gonna say tell some things like good choice. You picked up, and do a little bit more template literal kind of magic. So we can say answers.join. We'll join them all with a comma and a space. You're determined not to use an alright. You know what? it's not a bad way to think, because you go in the route where you're not using external packages for these things. It's not like you're saying like, oh, I'm too proud and I want to build it myself. You then learn how to do those interactions instead of passing off that knowledge to someone else. Having that ability to say, well, yeah, like you know, if it comes out and you're using this again in another product, like, oh yeah, no, I know how to do that interaction because I remember I built this tool a while back that did this. And in a lot of cases, like a lot of the packages and a lot of the kind of side projects I've built, they've been solutions that existed, whereas I wanted to build them myself, so I could say like, I know how to do this and I know how to do that. Um, no, yes, okay. In this case, I'm using a third-party package for convenience because I want to, like, you know, play about with actually building an interactive terminal, having something to handle those edge cases for me. Pick and choose your battles when it comes to npm packages. I did a whole talk about npm security 4 times last year in different conferences, and one of the key points is like, no, pick and choose your battles. Like, take advantage of what's out there, but also make sure what you write is your own code so you fully understand. If something goes wrong with a third-party package, you're kind of at a loss unless the author's going to fix it or you know how to fix it yourself, and chances are you don't because you're using that package. So you're very at the stuck. Thanks, Zero to Hero, for the follow. Always welcome. So having that ability to choose what you're doing and, you know, being able to write that code. Like, I think after this, I want to dig into the source of how Inquire works to see how you do these weird interactions. Like, I built out a terminal tool before, a very, very, very basic one, but it was around, let's see if we can get up the file for it. Yeah, so with this process and work where we wanted to run a command to bump the version of our package, we wanted to do it in like a safe way where it would check for any uncommitted code, unstaged code, and handle like a lot of edge cases were going on, you know, without having to, you know, write us some complex like bash script or tell people like, you know, before you do this, make sure you do that. Why not write a bit of a CLI tool that can do that for you? You might hear the dog barking in the background there. So we had this like safe version, and all it did was it called like the npm what's the npm bump, I think it was, or npm version, but it did checks like, you know, was there uncommitted git files, you know, had you staged the files but hadn't committed, and, you know, it would run like linting tools and all that kind of stuff. And, you know, building something yourself can be really beneficial for like being able to like create and control your entire process. That's right, so let's go off my tangent. So ready to play. We're checking the door. Pick up our beer. Pick up Swiss Army knife beer, and we'll pick up dust this time. Oh, ants dot join. It's not ants dot join. It's ants dot stuff dot join. So let's see if that fixed it. I can't be trusting it. Type my name every time. Oh, okay. So ants dot length. So this is a capture of like that use case there, where I didn't pick up anything. Equals 0. So we're going to say if they picked up nothing, we'll say nothing else, or all. Otherwise, then we're going to print out what they did joined up. Oh, check for the door. Good choice, you picked up. Length. Okay, useful if I could do that properly. So, picked up. What? Still, it's not picked. So, if length equals 0, print out nothing. What am I missing? So, if answers, answers dot stuff. Fuck. The wine is settling. Why is this complaining? Unresolved variable stuff. You think of right. I'm not using TypeScript, WebStorm. You don't know what I'm trying to do here, so you can't tell me that you don't understand it. Picked up nothing. Let's run it again. You picked up Swiss Army knife, beer, and hammer. Okay, cool. So now we've got like a choices ability. So we want to like kind of do some decision stuff, and maybe we could also then even lead back to. Oh, we could like, loop back to original questions. Let's just go back to. So look for a light. This is going to call. See, no light. So we'll create a new question called no light. Or do we need to create a question actually? So what I'm thinking is like, some things are just going to bring you back to start. So, because we want to keep this continuous on. So what if we say console.log, there is no light switch, and then we call first choice again. So what happens if we do that? And this creates like almost like a looping system, so we never know. In all these cases, the terminal's being ended for us. So we say, oh, I want to look for the light. There is no light switch. Can we get emojis in here? What is it again? Can't do emojis. Say dark. Say a moon. So we put that little weird moon. Oh. Can the terminal? I think the terminal can handle emojis. Just so it's a little bit more jazzed up. Almost cleared it. It does it clear for us. So your name. Are you ready? Say look for the light. Oh, it works in emojis. So then we're like, oh, look for the light. There's no light switch. Check the door. Pick up our Swiss Army knife. Okay, so we've kind of got somewhere. We've got different choices and options. Just skim this before, make sure I haven't missed anything. Curious what this editor is. Oh, okay, just it opens up like a file to edit. Right. So this is kind of cool. We've been in a while for like our processing and coding kind of stuff. So let's hopefully take this to the next level. I think I can hopefully do this on the stream. So this is kind of cool, but I don't want to have to install some runs. I'm thinking, can we set this up to run via npx? So if you don't know, npx allows you to run node commands natively without having to install them globally. I think we should be able to do this via that. So this is our package JSON. So CLI game, is CLI game taken on npm? It's not, right? So now we're going to publish our package. So we don't have a Git directory. Can you publish without a Git directory? Let's find out. So npm publish. It's publishing. Okay, so we now have CLI game version 1.0.0. I think I got an email there to tell me it was published. And their caching abilities is still quite strong. So I'll go to my account and see if it's listed there. I imagine it would be at the top. It didn't fail, did it? bet you it needs to have everything committed. See, the test is out, so another handy command with npm is you can do npm pack, and that'll bundle up what it is going to send to npm for you. So what's inside? Oh, let's get this in Finder. And expand it. So yeah, we have all the code. Maybe it's just the caching on this. That's worrying. Where did it publish to? Did it publish it? Does publish push it? I'm sure it does. Sign in and see. Yeah, it successfully published CLI-game. So it's definitely published. Maybe using password involved. Fuck that. Okay. That's because of chasing. So if I do npx CLI-game, clear terminal first. So npx CLI-game. It's doing something. It's pulling down all the dependencies for this, putting them in a temporary directory, and then it's gonna run that code for me. It's struggling, which is not good. Oh, okay, yeah. So right, that worked. So this is the point where like I'm gonna run through the game and then have my like final signed off cigarette. Anyone watching along, any questions in the chat, fire away. There's always a bit of delay in these things, so fire away now. And as I'm kind of closing off here, we can like have our like final chat and overview. And then any new viewers, anyone else, post away in the chat, say hello. So, Chris, I want to play an adventure. I'm going to check for light. There is no light. I'm going to check the door. On the way to the door, I find some items, so I'm going to pick up a Swiss Army knife, a beer, and a hammer. Good choice, you picked up the Swiss Army knife, beer, and hammer, and then we close. Enjoy your date night, Bill. It's always good to have you along here. Go off, enjoy yourself. So I think that's kind of cool. We went from like an empty file to having an interactive text-based game published to npm that I can run using npm x CLI. Definitely, man, when you're back in Belfast, give me a shout. We're going to hang out. So I think the final hold on this is actually this: create the get a repo and post this up. So anyone watching along can check out the code for this. So we'll close things off. Oh, we're in the terminal already. I don't know what I'm looking for. So git init, because we don't have a git repository here anymore. I'm going to create a get ignore file. So touch dot get ignore. We'll create a get ignore file for me. I'll go into WebStorm to edit it because WebStorm does a lot of useful things with a get ignore. Oh no, shit. WebStorm can create a get ignore for me. So I'm gonna say new. Do we have that option? Of course, the scroll is going to be really slow and painful. New dot ignore file. We're going to say get ignore file. Generate. And we want to ignore dot d So we want to ignore this. And anything else we want to ignore. Let's actually get rid of that zip file. We don't need that. No point pushing that up. We could probably get rid of backup because we don't need it anymore. Still need house questions, test.sh we can get rid of. So if I do get status, get add, I think I fudged that up, get add dot adds everything. It should. Okay, get status. Oh shit, I had no modules. Ah fuck, we're pushing them up. Get CLI minus M changes, because get messages never get read, so they mean nothing. Change my opinion on that, please. So get status right. So now I need to go into Git and create a new repository. New repository, and we're going to call this CLI-game. Gamey. Of course, it's available. It's under my org. I don't want to initialize this repository because I'm going to push up one that I have already. So we're going to do update the origin of our Git repository. I have these aliased for personal projects. Personal. And then I never know these commands, so I always have to copy and paste directly from GitHub. I think I might write an alias that can take in the name of the repository and actually do all this for me. So now we're pushing up all our code to Git. It's going to take a bit of time because it's pushing up the node modules, which I really shouldn't have added. I should have put a ignore for those. But let's see. npm, I think it's tilde and then the username. You can get me my user. And the cache still hasn't updated, unless I'm blind. Oh, CLI game. Okay. Either GitHub's or either npm's having problems, or this is a bug, or they don't show stuff of it. Oh, it doesn't have a README. That's fine. Yeah. So it doesn't have README, but we can still use it via PX. So now we flick back to our Git repository. We are published. So we'll flick back over to the weird funky cam. But yeah, thanks for everyone who was watching along. So that's kind of going from zero to building an interactive CLI, using different options to do that. Creating a text adventure game and publishing it to npm, so now we can, whenever I'm at work and I'm bored in between, a webpack compile or whatever, or a bundle build, I can then quickly just do npx and CLI-game, and I've got a game that I'll maybe add to over time. I think this could be a good project for anyone watching along. During the month of October, there's Hacktoberfest going on. So it's a cool way to get into open source technology and contribute to open source packages. I'm going to drop in a link into the chat. So I'm going to create a bunch of pull requests on this project, hopefully, if I get the time. And you can then contribute to the repo and build up your, you have to do 4 pull requests and you're eligible to win a t-shirt. The t-shirts are awesome. I've had 3 of them so far. I think you get some stickers too. So it's a cool way to get yourself into open source, do some things. Keep an eye on that repository. I'm going to create some, I'll post that in the chat too. I'm going to create some pull requests to kind of add different things to the game. And people can play about with the game, do the different things with it. And yeah, thanks for watching. I'll see you again.